This is Clue FX. It was produced by Parker Brothers in 2003 and designed by Craig Van Ness. Now, if that name sounds familiar, that's because I recently reviewed NASCAR Champions, which was also designed by Craig Van Ness. I thought that was kind of interesting to get two games really close together that happen to have the same designer there. So just fun little deal. I recently came across this. It was called Cluedo SFX when it was released in Europe. This is a neat hybrid of board game and electronic game, and if you've watched my show, you know I love games that have gimmicks like that or combine toy-like elements, and this is really cool. We get this 3D facade of the mansion, and the mystery now takes place on the grounds around the mansion. The little hedgerow in front of the mansion is actually comprised of little bushes that serve as buttons for you to press to make the game function. The butler will host the game, and his voice will come out of the mansion.
Welcome to Clue FX. Please choose your characters.
And you will actually hear characters move around the board and talk as they do.
Mrs. Meadowbrook has left the gatehouse. Rusty has left the garage.
I got things to tidy up.
So we've got a whole colorful cast of characters, just like the original Clue, actually with a few extras to make the game interesting. So before we get too far into that, let's start, as always, with this game box, which this is a striking foil-coated game box with a really interesting modern art style here. I thought that was pretty cool. Now, we'll be playing as 4 new characters to the series, so you see them pictured prominently up front, interviewing some of the classic characters. When we flip the box over, we see a nice photo of the game board and a description of what the gameplay is going to be like. It's a lift-off top box, and there's very little extra room in there, but plenty for you to store all the game's components. Now, this game board actually has 2 folding points and a permanently affixed plastic piece that includes the speaker that runs the game. Now, part of the reason why this game box folds so funny, or I should say the game folds so funny to fit into the box, is actually because in order for the players to move around the board, they are going to be using these special characters that when you press them down into their base, it's obvious that they have a little RFID chip that transmits to one of these receivers located on the rooms around the map. So in order for those receivers to make a circuit with this little speaker box that's located in the mansion, there's going to be flat wire running through this game board, and flat wire cannot be bent beyond 90 degrees. So by having the board fold at 2 places, this is a terrible example because I should take the mansion off here, but the top will not force any of the joints to bend beyond 90 degrees. And you'll also notice there's a little bit of a ripple on the board when I lay it flat to clearly accommodate for that circuitry there. So really fascinating engineering. So each of the player pieces is nicely painted and sculpted. Unfortunately, my version of Miss Peach bears a striking resemblance to Marie Antoinette. She's the only figurine I had where her head got snapped off. But what's funny is when I played this game, I understood why these characters might have been roughly handled. This is Prince Azure, my favorite character for reasons. But like I said, when you move around the map, your character will be on this starting space, and then you navigate to a room. There's no rolling dice. You can move to any room that you want, and you press your character down when they're on top of this little rough area with this little transmitter symbol.
You see Miss Scarlet at the boathouse.
Oh, hello, dear.
The game will note that you are there, and the butler will read off the witnesses that you see in that room, or in that, it's not really a room, it's actually just an area like the tennis court, the garage, the stables, the gazebo, the garden, the boathouse. And I love the art for all of these too. I mean, when we look at this board, I love games that have these really cool display facades like this. Like, this reminds me of 13 Dead End Drive, just without all the traps and stuff. This is much smaller. I even like that you can place a character up in the parapet if you want to. There's no function in the game to do that. But I don't know. I just thought this is why I love games that combine like a sort of almost toy element to it. This just adds so much to it. I think the art style on the board is really nice. It actually, what's funny is the art style on the board is a departure from the art style on the box, which I thought was really interesting. The board has a much warmer art style to it, though similar. No people are depicted, whereas this is a much more stark, very brutalist modern art style, where this has a bit, I don't know what kind of style I would label this, because it's a small departure from what they have on the box, but it's definitely more detailed. It's definitely warmer. It's very stylized. If you're an art major, comment what you think this aesthetic would be called. I love that stuff. Anyway, great game board, awesome function with the bushes here. The voice that comes through the speaker is actually pretty clear. This is like Clue and Omega Virus put together for me, which I thought was great. Now, as you're playing the game, there are some differences from Clue. I love that you get these little handbooks to put your player sheet in to keep your progress secret from everybody. That's always something, like when I've been playing classic Clue, I always try to find like a notepad or something to write on. So I love that the game came with that feature. We get all of our classic 6 Clue characters with 2 additions. We get Rusty and Mrs. Meadowbrook. Now, the interesting thing is, in this story, we're not solving the murder of Mr. Body. Instead, we are at the mansion of Mr. Body, but his attorney, Mr. Meadowbrook, has been murdered. And the 4 characters that you'll be playing are not suspects at all. They are simply helping solve the case, but everybody else is a suspect. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to shuffle the weapon cards, the location cards, and the player cards, and first you're going to deal out, what is it? I think we have 8 characters now, and each one of them has a little character file, a little envelope like this. So what you'll do is at the outset of the game, each one of these characters, you will put a clue card in their envelope. Now, these characters are actually going to be moving around the board. You don't physically see them, but the butler will tell you, for instance, Colonel Mustard has moved to the garage.
Mrs. Peacock has left the gazebo and has entered the stable.
Hello, handsome.
Otherwise, you don't know where they're hanging out. So that's part of the exploration. As you move around, you'll discover them as you enter and exit areas of the map, and you have this little search function here, so you might go and not see them, and then when you search, they'll say somebody happens to be fidgeting around behind the bushes trying to hide something.
You search and find Miss Scarlet hiding behind the shrubbery.
Oh, good heavens.
It's really interesting because they'll act suspect, and it adds to the immersion and the story. Now, you will also be starting rumors just like you would in a normal game of Clue. So you have your choice of questioning, as they put it, the witnesses that you see. So if you go to a place, let's say I go to the tennis court, and it says Colonel Mustard and Professor Plum are there, I get a chance to look in that file to see what clue Colonel Mustard and Professor Plum have. Now, after I do that, I have the choice to hit search and search that area to see if somebody else is hiding there. If they are, I get to look at whatever they have in their player profile here. Or I can ask, I can make start a rumor, not an accusation. An accusation is the final one, but I can start a rumor and say, I think it was this person in this location with this weapon. Now, I always have to use the location that I'm in that instance. However, that's my way of sussing out which cards the other players around the table have. So it's a hybrid between questioning all of these non-player characters that are moving around the map and questioning the other players that are playing the game with you, which actually made the 2-player game a lot more fun. Now, when you're ready to make your final accusation, you are going to want to locate Inspector Brown, who also will be occasionally moving around the map. So partway through the game, the butler will announce that Inspector Brown has appeared on the scene.
The inspector has just arrived. He is currently at Tudor Mansion. Evening, ladies and gentlemen. I will be thoroughly searching the grounds. Please find me if you have any clues regarding the Meadowbrook mystery.
You'll have to try to keep track of where he goes. Now, the interesting thing is they won't always tell you when a character moves from one place to another. Sometimes they just will. Sometimes they'll play a sound effect, because every time you enter one of these areas, a sound effect plays showing that your character has gone there. And so what's interesting is an NPC or a non-player character can go to one of these locations and it will occasionally play a sound effect. Or the butler, if they believe that your player characters are close enough, like if my player characters are positioned correctly that they would see the non-player character, the butler will announce the non-player character moving from one room to another, because obviously we saw it. So I thought that was really brilliant technology. I do want to point out too, we get this really nice rule book. It's saddle stitched, printed on glossy paper. We actually do have a nice picture here so you can see what Miss Peach was supposed to look like when she still had her head. So I'm glad that we had that. This game was a blast. However, I went online because we did have some issues occasionally having the game not be able to receive the signal properly, and I was worried that it was degradation of the flat wire embedded. Now, the flat wire might be in the board or just below the board art. I'm not 100% sure. There's not much of a profile here, but given how the board folds and how everything's put together, and my understanding of how, and I'm not an expert, so if you're more familiar with RFID technology, comment below. I'd like to know. But that being said, given that a lot of people will complain that the farthest area from the mansion will begin to degrade in signal first, I surmise that because we have these two spots that regularly get folded up when the game is in storage, over time those connections can be broken, and this area of the board is the most likely to have them broken because it's on the opposite side of the two folds in the board. So I'm glad that this game was gently handled, but it is still not 100%. Now there's probably also like a little battery, little lithium battery in here that I might be able to replace on these guys so that they can transmit a stronger signal. So it might also be battery depletion on the part of the player pieces. But that being said, if it's functional, if it's working, this game is actually a lot of fun. And I was able to muscle through times when the transmitter wasn't working correctly.
Lord Craig, your turn. Lord Craig, please move. You see Colonel Mustard at the barrage. Hello there, old chap. Colonel Mustard's the name.
Things like pulling the player character all the way away from the board, then gently setting them on, and don't press too hard. You just need to press it down enough that it makes contact on the player piece's base. It's just a very light spring. You can feel it like a soft button on one of those cheap remotes for like LED lights and stuff like that. So I've seen a lot of people talk about pressing really hard to try to get a good signal online, and that's only going to damage the contacts on this and possibly the board itself. So it's really just about remove it all the way so that you can clear the signal and place it back down and maybe hold it for a second. I also found that just moving it around the pad where it senses worked well as well. So worked well as well. Wow, good phrasing there, Doug. It worked quite well. We'll just leave it at that. But overall, it was a very fun experience, very novel. What I appreciate about this game is this is an early example of RFID technology being integrated into a board game in such a fashion that I found that it did nothing but bolster the gameplay. This was a blast, and if you find a copy, I highly recommend you pick one up if you're a fan of Clue. I loved the fact that it really made the two-player portion feel much more enhanced. It is limited to 4-player. Other variations of Clue you can play with up to 6. This, unfortunately, is limited to 4, but it's a much more simplified, also faster-paced experience. Even though there are more weapons and more characters, not so much, well, you know what, there are a pretty fair amount of locations, but not more than a regular game of Clue. But that being said, I also like the, I do want to point out too, the weapons are all pretty much blunt force trauma save for the garden shears. And the lawn gnome, man, there's a lawn gnome weapon in this one. That alone is worth the price of admission, if you ask me. But I thought this was really novel. I enjoy this type of game, and I think you will too. So if you find a copy of Clue FX or Cluedo SFX laying around at your local thrift, pick it up. You won't be disappointed. So are there any other versions of Clue that you think are unique little treats that I should check out? You know, I've already reviewed Golden Girls Clue. I haven't done a review of Clue Harry Potter, which I got a copy of, but it's not great, so it's tough for me to do bad reviews. Comment below, let me know, what edition of Clue would you like to see me review? And hey, thanks a lot to my couch potatoes, the channel members who make awesome videos like this possible. You rock. And thank you for joining me. I always have a great time sharing these awesome games with you. Can't wait to do it again next time.